back to the brokest guy in the room. This is Chris Kushner. With the holidays right around the corner, Thanksgiving is next Thursday. I've got giving on the mind, particularly as it pertains to giving to yourself in order to give to others, to be your best self. I'll start with a quick poem. Chasing what I thought was lost, I was soon to lose myself. Perhaps pursuing poverty is how one discovers wealth. I tried to give it all away, but gained more than I could give, and in letting oneself die, another found a way to live. In my life, I've been fortunate enough to survive many hardships. And those experiences have given me the kind of education that you can't get any other way. I spent most of my life discounting myself, disqualifying my education, reducing my capabilities, simply because I never finished college. I'm a person who went to college. I started my first company with a good friend freshman year. Sophomore year, I also bought a home that year with the help of my parents. The idea was to rent out the extra bedrooms, pay the mortgage, give it back to my parents when I was done with it, and let them keep the equity that was built. Meanwhile, safeguarding both of us from room and board and affording me the freedom of having my own home. Nonetheless, I started early. I dropped out of college at the end of sophomore year because life threw me some curveballs. At that time, the level of inadequacy that I felt in my life was so overwhelming that it caused me to graciously accept any opportunity that came my way for the next few years. That's how you end up with a pedigree like mine, as eclectic or as attention deficit as it may be, right? In my journey, I've been a lot of things. I've worn a lot of hats. You know, I've been a poet, an athlete, a captain, a teacher, a lecturer, a friend, a father, a student, an employee, a business owner, a political candidate. Now I aspire to be a motivator. Yet, every time I walked in the room, and this is kind of where the brokest guy in the room title comes from. You know, I used to laughingly say I made a career of being the brokest guy in the room because I always felt at such a disadvantage. I always felt that everyone around me had everything they needed, that I wasn't good enough. Man, the level to which that feeling encompassed me. What I would learn along the way was that I hadn't given myself an opportunity. I wasn't giving myself credit for what I'd survived thus far. I was focusing on my failures and not celebrating my victories. Fast forward to today. My life has turned around tremendously. I've been fortunate enough to survive those events, leverage the strength gained, and apply it in new applications, and build a new life for myself. Now I find myself in a position where I get to explore my passions. At this point, from this perspective, I can recall very vividly what it feels like to live paycheck to paycheck, to not be in control of your own schedule, to trade your freedom, your time, for a nominal fee. It was never nearly enough. I remember what that's like. Now I'm constantly surrounded by people who I love, adore, and care for, and I watch them wear these shackles, and it hurts. It makes me appreciate the freedom that I have. The number of times that I wish I could have traded circumstances with someone else, with anyone else, seem like a distant memory now. The other day in the gym, I saw a good friend of mine, and he looks up at me and he shakes his head and he goes, "Man, I'm dragging today. I'm dragging ass." And I said, what's going on? He says, well, I'm just not getting much sleep. There's just never enough time in the day. I got kids, I got work, I got this, I got that. And I said to him, well, you got to change it, right? And he goes, yeah, but there's that phrase. That phrase has become a trigger for me like nobody's business. Yeah, but. It's amazing how many times we will let ourselves say that. Somebody's telling you know that you are about to get the advice that could actually help you. And the first thing you go to do is disqualify it with a yeah, but. It's amazing how many people will come to you with a problem and you'll offer a solution. And the moment you open your mouth to offer it, the head starts shaking no. There's a lot of people like this in my life I see right now. I would challenge you, start paying attention. Next time you're approaching a problem or you feel challenged by something, potentially threatened by something, you're going to seek out, you're going to find yourself in a moment seeking out a friend, a mentor, a colleague, somebody. And perhaps your goal isn't really to get advice. Perhaps your goal is simply to bitch and find a listening ear. That might be the case. Yeah, but, well, maybe you do want to bitch. Yeah, but, right? Anyhow, I'm talking to him and he says, I don't know what to do, man. I just feel like I'm breaking down. I say, you got to change it, right? You have to give yourself some sleep or you're not going to be able to give those people. And there came that, yeah, but, and what I realized in that moment is how many, and listen, look, my perspective is male. I'm a man. And I've been running into, right now I'm very sensitive to the plight of a lot of men are going through. They have this idea that they are so trapped into a path that all they can do is kind of grit their teeth, bear down, and keep moving forward. They can't give themselves enough to replenish so that the all of themselves they're giving is all of their whole self, right? If I'm only at 50% capacity and I'm telling you I'm giving you my all, I'm only giving you 50%, let's be honest. It behooves you at that point to allow me to rest so that I can then return and give you 100%. Yet so many men under the weight of their own families aren't afforded this opportunity. It hurts. I got a cousin who I look up to tremendously. And I recall a conversation with him, and he's woeing over the financial challenges that come along with having a big family. And he tells me I'm working 7 days a week. And that comment right there stuck out with me. That one really hit me because 7 days. There's only 7 days in the week. If you're at 7 days a week, you're at capacity. If you're at capacity, that means you run the risk of straws now, right? The straw that broke the camel's back. Suddenly straws become threats. Well, that's not good. It's certainly not sustainable. So again, I say to my cousin, I say, cuz, you got to change, right? And he says, I can't afford to change. What am I supposed to do? Stop? I can't risk that. And it's funny because in my head, I hear what he's saying and I understand what he's saying, but knowing what I know, I feel you can't afford not to. That's how I see it. I wonder how many people listening feel that on a daily basis. Are you at capacity? Is that sustainable? Is the solution really to just hunker down and just keep moving forward? What happens if you can't do it anymore? What happens if you get tired? What happens if you got to take a knee? Do you then feel not good enough? Do you then feel like you failed? Do you then feel like you let everybody down? What if you keep marching forward until you got no steam at all and then you really let everybody down? When I went to Bali, I intended to go for a week. I intended to go for a week to blow off steam because I felt I needed that for me. Thing about me, I mentioned I started my first company when I was 19. Now, since I was 19, I've pretty well worked a full schedule at all times and maintained a full dance card worth of responsibilities at all times. At 37 years old, I took an opportunity to go to Bali for myself. And 3 days in, day 3 of what's supposed to be a 7-day trip, an opportunity presents itself for me to make an investment in myself. The opportunity cost here, or the required investment, I should say, to be more accurate. The required investment was a month's time. I was supposed to be home in a few days. I had to look at myself and call my wife, call my staff, call my right hand, and say, I need you guys to be okay with me being gone for a month. I need that. I need that for me. What I promise you, you will get on the other side when I return is a better me than you ever seen, a bigger me than you ever seen. And I was fortunate enough for the people I love and care about to be wise enough to allow me to make said investment so that I could go through and improve myself, so that I could come back and they could see their investment appreciate, and thus appreciate the fruits of their investment. Well, it worked. I can tell you that. It's been kind of funny coming back. I almost wish I had my beautiful wife here to attest to what I'm about to tell you. But the changes have been so shocking, so loud, overt, apparent, that on numerous occasions I find my wife waiting for me to be upset by things that would have ruffled the feathers of the old me, the old Chris. And every time it's the same thing. I in that moment that I realize that I look up at her and I'm like, man, you're still waiting for Mr. Hyde to show up, aren't you? In case anybody listening doesn't catch the reference, I'm referring to Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I used to suffer like a lot of people. I used to suffer with a lot of anger issues. This caused me to lash out often to even hurt people that I really loved, that I cared about. The very people who were probably just trying to make me feel better in a moment that I was feeling like crap about myself or about my circumstances. It's funny how you do that. It's kind of like how they say, a drowning man is a dangerous thing to somebody trying to save his life, right? That person will pull you under in order to save their own life because they can't think because they're irrational. I dare say that at the moment I left, I was irrational. But I was able to change. I was able to give myself something over the course of a month's time. I was able to kind of strip away all the old baggage, heal the old scars, and feel the beauty beneath them. I started to love their placements, love the occurrences, love the things that made them. I guess I shouldn't say I healed the scars. I learned to love them, which is actually quite different and worth mentioning. The whole thing happened to me by accident, but it was extremely significant because had the challenging circumstances that led me to go to Bali not presented themselves, there is no way I would have allowed myself to invest in myself in such a way. Hence the reason you will often hear me say that you need to have gratitude for all things. You need to look at this world with gratitude. I had an epiphany one day in meditation regarding this very thing. I thought I discovered the secret to the universe, and essentially the vision that came before me was of me as a child receiving a gift from my parents, and the gift unfortunately was not what I wanted, and so I pretty cordially rejected it. And in that moment, a flash, I saw many years pass with no gifts left to come. And then you realize that the one you threw away would be real nice on one of those days you had none. Significance. I call this salt. I tell this story often. I've told it before. I'll tell it again real quick. This is the story of the king with the 3 daughters. For tribute on his birthday, the king asked his 3 daughters to all present him with gifts. And the gifts of the first 2 are very superficial. And the gift that the one he loved the most, his youngest daughter, gave him was metaphorical. She gave him salt. Well, years would pass, and as a result of this, the father would be so outraged, the king would be so outraged that he would cast that daughter into slavery. Well, many years later, she would escape slavery, and she would rise up to become a great chef, the very chef who would be preparing the next birthday feast for said king. He didn't know that. She prepared the meat for the feast without salt, and upon tasting the first bite of his plate, the king began to weep. In that moment, realizing the significance of the gift that cost him his greatest possession, his baby girl. These challenges we have, these circumstances that we get often in life, they're salt. They're the salt. And if you reject it before you understand it, you may never get to realize the significance of it. Hence the phrase, don't quit before the miracle. Thanks, Amanda Jane. So, don't quit before the miracle. These gifts, when I realized this, I realized that if you can take all things in the universe with equal gratitude, that you will find you have so much more to express gratitude for. So I started making a point to be gracious for the bad things, even more than the good things in my life, particularly my disease. I live with Crohn's disease. It's a pain in the gut, literally, constantly. I mean, it dictates everything I do, every choice I make, everywhere I go, every plan that I make. But the reality is, I couldn't be more grateful to have this disease. The reality is that my makeup, my passionate being of a person, well, there's a thing about passion. You're attracted to excitement. Well, that tends to be traits of an addictive personality, of which mine is extremely. Why am I telling you this? In my life, I've been addicted to many things. And my life could have gone a very different way with a few subtle changes, right? If my Crohn's disease wasn't there to inflict on me consequences so severe that they caused me to think twice, I would likely have made a hell of a lot more bad decisions in my life. Some of them could have cost me my life. And that is not lost on me. So as a result, every day, every time, in the middle of every flare, in the middle of every time that I'm sweating, in the middle of every time that I feel like I'm going to throw up or I think I'm going to crap myself because of this damn disease, I make a point to thank it. Every single time. Recently, I heard Oprah telling a story about gratitude, and it was something that I started practicing following this epiphany I had in meditation. And I started making a point to every morning during my meditation to envision the very things that I'm grateful for, to personify them, to embody them, whether they be figurative, whether they be literal, physical challenges, whatever they are. I started making a point. Slowly but surely over time, I started noticing that certain weights in my life, figurative weights, challenges, obstacles, they stopped requiring so much effort. Oprah said that if you spend 17 seconds a day focusing on gratitude, it can literally change the frequency of your human vibration. That's pretty amazing. That's pretty amazing. Well, I experienced such a thing. Only I had never heard it articulated, nor did I know what I was doing, nor did I really understand it, nor did it matter, because the effects were so easy to realize. I mentioned a second ago that what I noticed was that the conquering of certain obstacles, the strength required to lift certain weights, the effort I had to put in just started to get greatly reduced. Sadhguru said something interesting to me that, or said something interesting I heard that was very interesting to me, is what I meant. He did not say it to me directly. I wish he had. What he said was, one might think that those who never put in effort might be the masters of effortlessness, or should be the masters of effortlessness. So, you think of that coworker that everyone has, right? That one person that never pulls their weight. Are they the master of not putting in effort? Interesting. From Sadhguru's perspective, this is not the case. That the masters of effortlessness are simply the true masters, because effortlessness does not occur by not providing effort. It occurs when one has exhibited such a mastery over the required task that the completion of said task no longer requires effort. Hence, effortlessness. I thought this was beautiful, remarkable, and relevant. Relating it to gratitude. The more consciously I focused on expressing gratitude, the easier it became to express it. More and more, I started finding that in my corners of my life and the places where I used to look and see things that would incite rage or make me upset, more and more I was finding things that I admired, things that I loved, that I appreciated. That hit my life like an infection. It started to penetrate every other thought. It started to modify my applications. It started to change how I saw the world, how I internalized things. Simple thing of gratitude. I started listening to the universe a hell of a lot more. I started paying attention to the fact that it was speaking to me. I encourage you to start listening, because it is speaking to you every day. Every single day. I started out talking about giving, because next week is Thanksgiving. Christmas coming around the corner. If you don't know, that happens to be my birthday and the very reason I'm named Chris. Hard to believe I will be 38 years old. Tuesday, Christmas Day, 1984 is when I was born. And I'm thinking about giving. And why I'm thinking about giving is because I see so many people trying to give all of themselves to their family, to their job, to their cause, without giving to themselves. For people who just feel there's no option other than to just keep digging the hole, just keep bearing down, just grit those teeth and just keep working through it. I know you're hurting on the inside in a way that is impossible to articulate in a place you will never let anyone see. I know, because I feel the hurt there too. You can't keep doing it. Take it from a guy who it happened to by accident. I was fortunate. Like so many in my life, this was an incredibly fortunate and absolutely wonderful accident. the tastiest salt I can recall. As a result, though, I now sit here having realized the appreciation of an unintended investment in myself. And if you're asking me if I'd do it again, holy crap, I'll say yes so fast it'll spin your head back sideways. Yes, unequivocally yes. It was worth it. Because the way I feel today in this skin, in this body, is incredible. It's worth fighting for. It's worth crossing the planet for. It's worth making all the people who I give to wait just a little bit, be uncomfortable for just a little bit, so that I can build a bigger me to give to you. Own that. Own that. If you're one of those people who's out there and you're saying that you want to give your all to your family, or that that's what you're doing, is your all 100% of you? Do you feel at your best? Are you right now the biggest, best, strongest you've been, the healthiest you? Are you? If not, why? What's stopping you? What is standing in your way? And don't but me, right? Throw that shit out the window. You gotta be tired of saying it to yourself. Aren't you tired of looking the old you in the mirror? Aren't you sick of it? Don't you want to be a better you for those same people you claim to be giving your all for? I'll tell you what happens. Eventually, I'll tell you what happens, right? Because if you don't give to yourself, eventually, yourself starts to fight back. Eventually, yourself starts to look at all of the people, the things, the reasons that it was put in second place, and holds them accountable for not getting what it wants and what it needs. Suddenly, the man that it carries around in you resents all of the things that you thought you loved. If you resent them, how good for them can you be? Let's be honest. Let's be honest. I know that in the people in my world, in my life, I was not given my all to, because I hadn't given myself enough to be all of myself for me. I wasn't loving myself. I was trying to love them without loving myself. You can't do that. It's not possible. If you think you can, keep trying. Eventually you realize you can't. It's a lie. It's a lie you tell yourself, that we all tell ourselves. A while ago, I had a beautiful experience that came to me on one of the darkest nights of my soul that I can recall. A night that I so loathed my own makeup that all I could think, all I wanted more than anything on this planet was for it all to end. I was done. I didn't want to be Chris Kushner anymore. I didn't want to look him in the mirror. I didn't want to know he existed. I was sick of him. I didn't like the way he smelled. I didn't like the way he looked. I wanted him gone, and I wanted to stop being a part of him. On that night, as I'm sitting there at this very desk that I'm sitting at, I look up, and it was as if I was transported to another dimension. I look up, and what I see across from me is myself. But not this me, an older me, a dying me, a me alone in a room with a blanket over his lap in a wheelchair. Nothing but a hospital window behind him. And I'm looking at this old man, and it occurs to me that why I am seeing him is because this is a moment of truth. This is the moment of truth where I have to look at this person and be willing to say, I don't love you, and be willing to walk away, be willing to not consider his plight, his woes, what he's going through in that moment, be willing to have no empathy for this human being. And in that moment, I found that I did love myself. But I needed to see myself as someone else in order to do it. That has become a very incredible tool for me to use. And it's one that I offer to you, to any of you who are listening, who are struggling with your feelings about yourself. Remember that the future you is a real you. It's a real version of you. It's because you don't see it now. Close your eyes. You sit on that long enough, you'll start to see that person. Could you really look that person in the eye and do them harm? Could you really look that person in the eye and tell them you don't love them? Could you? You might have me beat if so, but I'm willing to bet that a lot of you couldn't. That a lot of you would come with compassion. That a lot of you would want to wrap your arms around your future self and say, it's gonna be okay. You're not alone. I love you. I love you. That last part. Ooh, man, it's amazing how hard that was for me to say to myself for so damn long. And then you're fortunate enough to have an experience like that. Another beautiful accident that made me realize I did love myself. Another moment that I was forced to give to myself what I needed so that I could continue to give all of myself to those I wanted to give it to. This also makes me think about when we choose to give it to people who don't deserve it. In my desperate need to feel validated and to feel needed, I spent much of my life giving all of myself away. Like the giving tree, I left myself with nothing left. And as I was there empty and broken down, my mid-20s, feeling like I'd wasted everything, like I blew it all. And yet still, the little bits I would generate, I'd be so quick to give away again. Walking down the streets with holes in my pocket, knowing it, continuing to pump my change in there so it'll fall out because the people behind me need it more than me, so I thought. What I overlooked there was that maybe they needed more than me, but did they need it more than the people that I care about? More than the people that I'm committed to? More than the people that I love? If you're really on a path where you're trying to give all of yourself and give it all away to everyone else, keep in mind, don't you forget the people that are closest to you, the people who are depending on you already, the people who you've promised yourself to. Because I promise you, when you start looking around like that, it's so easy to overlook those closest to you. I'm dealing with it right now. Yesterday morning, I woke up and what I got in the mail was paperwork for custody hearing. That information that my daughter no longer wishes to live with me. A piece of information that in a lot of ways felt like she no longer wants me to be her father. At least not have a parental relationship as such. And I guess I'm still looking for the salt on this one a little bit. It hurts. It hurts like nothing you could possibly imagine. Oh, it hurts. And it never stops. Why is this happening to me? Clearly, there's something I'm supposed to learn. In listening to my daughter, what I'm hearing over and over again is that she wasn't getting from me what she needed. I was so busy trying to give it to everyone else and telling myself that I was doing it for a whole bunch of bullshit reasons, right? I'm not here for you because I'm doing this for you. Yeah, well, what kind of freaking bullshit is that? You're stealing time, hoping to replace it with a trinket and a dime. Fool's errand. Absolute fool's errand. Don't overlook the people you love. And include in that bucket of people you love, you better include yourself. It's so important. When you get ready to give thanks next week and you prepare for the Christmas holidays, the winter holidays, I'll call it, and you prepare, start thinking about everybody you want to give presents for, This year, do something for yourself. Just see what happens if it's a subtle little change. Something you wanted. Even if it's not a trinket. Even if it's just 10 minutes alone. Even if it's a day to sleep. Give it to yourself. Once. Run the experiment. Pay attention to how you feel. Write it down. Then pay attention to how the rest of the day goes with your loved ones. Pay attention to how they feel. Pay attention to how the interactions between you two go, between you all of them. See if maybe you're not just a little bit better of you. Be willing to give yourself the things that you know will make you better. And stop being so willing to give away the things you need to be better. Stop being so willing to be in your own way. Start paying attention to the choices you're making. Start paying attention to the outcomes you're getting. Start asking yourself if the ends justify the means. Am I accomplishing what I set out to? Is it sustainable? Be honest with yourself. I tell you, there's nothing more dangerous on this planet than a person who doesn't realize that what they accomplish and what they intended to accomplish don't sync up. It's dangerous, right? I can tell you so many people I know who are constantly doing things they think are helping someone when in actuality it's those same things that are killing those people, those persons. You know, a lot of parental relationships that I see over and over and over again where, you know, the person is exhibiting control or removing freedoms in an effort to do it for this person. In reality, they are snuffing out the very soul they created or that they gave incarnation to in that body. They're doing the exact opposite. And the proof's all over it because you look at their poor kid and they just look like a tortured person because they are being tortured because they're forced to not be who they are. Do your outcomes and your intentions align? Be willing to ask yourself that. You can take that in a whole bunch of different ways. But to boil it down simply, the last time you set out and you said you were going to give 100% of yourself to something, was 100% you gave 100% of the whole? Or was it 100% of a shell? Dare to give yourself the things you need so that you can see what you're capable of when you do. And if you feel like you can't, what is that? Can't for a day, can't now, can't forever. Start getting honest with that. Are you pulling a yeah butt? Are you? Cut it out. You deserve better. You deserve better, and so do the people that you love and that you care about. I challenge you, if you're listening, picture your life and what it looks like if you had the things you desired, the things that make you feel good. They don't need to be physical objects. It could be freedoms. It could be time. It could be anything. What does that look like to you? What is that like? Close your eyes. Give yourself 5 minutes and wrap yourself in this fantasy world and see what it feels like. Does it feel good? Because I bet it feels amazing. And if it does, when you open your eyes, ask yourself, why not? You'll always be able to say that this is only the beginning. Always. Always. All you have to do is take the first steps and then do it again. Rinse, wash, repeat. This is Chris Kushner from the brokest guy in the room. Be good to yourselves. Love yourselves, and you'll love everyone else. Namaste.